dislocate your shoulder, you might want to do something, right? You might want to do something. It's pretty hard when these middle class people all the time, right? You can't hurt them. The police arrest them, they'll arrest you. Because the police will always arrest the scapegoat. And the scapegoat has served by a certain parasitical intelligence, the way the perpetrators in the dump will have their innocence preserved, along with their prerogative to initiate and maintain the dominant narrative. And the police will do that automatically, not just because they're police, but because white people and human beings will do that automatically, because they're compatible with it. They speak that language. So by the time you're abused, like working people, it's only going to get worse before it gets better, because no one, especially if it's a male, right? Okay, really, no one has been here. Wow. Oh, animal trail, yes. No one's a good enough sheep. Blue sky. Nice. I remember a guy named Kevin Peters who helped, it was the first time men physically raped me, and helped my brother physically dislocate my shoulder and most of my ribs. And I remember the last time I looked at him was the last time I saw him, because he moved out immediately, which was pretty smart, because, you know, I didn't have a good working arm anymore, but had I would have grabbed him by the throat and ripped off his balls. And I think he knew that. These people don't know what they're capable of. Understand? They have energy in them, they don't even know what it is. People say sometimes demonically controlled. Most working people are. That's why you work like a demon. That's why you can handle so much work, because you're demonically possessed. The logos of your company, you have a role to play when you wear costumes. You're basically being possessed by spirit, as it were, of what the world needs you to be, regardless of whether it's ethical or not. And you have to lower your inhibitions to do that. You notice as a child, they have to break you down so you'll lower your inhibitions to fucking work, to have sex under all these conditions and with these types of mentally ill people. If you don't want to do that, well, that's a difficult course. That's the one I took. I felt a natural aversion, you see. That was the last natural thing in me, you might say. Because that was a part of all of my life. As a psychiatrist, called social avoidance. I've never wondered what I was avoiding or why. Like, if there's a fire and someone's running, be like, wow, he's got house avoidance. But, right? And so you see that the person running has some kind of problem. Run from house fires, they get a job there and lick the asshole of the giant beast they work for. Right? That's good. Calf muscles hurting a lot. I need to take a break again soon. I remember the last RCMP officer I had to talk to over the phone. Wow. Just like the woman I talked to in the government today. They have minds that are just capable like robot machines. I see. So it's your opinion doesn't matter. You have nothing to prove. Your theory does not matter. No. The guy was there. I was the one there. Isn't it possible we should lose our job also? For asking the unnecessarily rhetorical question. White women are bullies. Simple. They're grown that way. They're all type A alphas, which means they're not type 1 alphas, they're type A alphas. They're passive aggressive, free floating aggression, right? Wow, aggression to a total stranger, place your age. That's crazy, right? To be around females is to study abnormal psychology. Relieve them of moral agency, like the police, because they can't bear that. Their behavior does not bear out with what we would expect from people who have moral agency. So you have to eliminate that. They have eliminated that. In order to study them, you have to remove that from them. They don't want it. Women only want it when they're doing something good. That. Well, that hurts people because ultimately they don't have to care what they do to other people. Right? Right? Women never have to care what they do to other people. They have no moral agency. And to understand the behavior, you have to remove that from them. They wish you to do so. They don't want to bear moral responsibility for anything because then they would have to change how they think. Right? Things might not seem the same way anymore to them. Things might not be the same. They may not maintain the few advantages they think they have, right? Yeah, good. So you don't attribute to the police, to politicians, to actors, to white, possibly white men as well, moral agency. None of us have it. We're not imagined to have it. You do what you're told. If you do what you're told, no matter who it hurts, just like a soldier, a worker's like a soldier, basically that's what you get. Deal with it. The police aren't there for things that people do when they're doing what they're supposed to do. The police are there for people who don't do what they're supposed to do. It's not about being legal or illegal. You're doing something you're not supposed to do. Something unwritten. Something not scripted. You're not acting like a regular actor. You're on the stage of life, but you're not playing any of the roles assigned to you. When you don't play that role, by default, you'll be given the role of the scapegoat. Because the system can't, but it knows that people will end up choosing that role because they don't want to play another role, right? And the only reason you put up with playing a role at all is because you think it gets you something, because you've entered into denial and suspension of disbelief, where you no longer have to feel or bear which you are actually bearing, and the deference to which loss of pain, as the actor loses their neuroses, you become more compatible with organizations that are bound to distribute it based on the current voltaic potential setup through violence to any number of other people, all by saying, following some laudable aim. And that's how cults are born. And you have to disrupt during childhood to make that possible. And that's what Christianity was for, wars and things like that. It wasn't about saving the world. It was really Bing Crosby. It was about sacrificing men, women, and children. The needs of the financial world of God, which is the royal family that owns the world, and who supply all the major actors in every enterprise in the world, not just Hollywood. That's a red herring. These people are far better at their craft than you realize. They're trained better. You never know who they are. Hundreds of languages. They can mimic hundreds of more dialects. They're extremely gifted. Just languages and cultures that have largely been invented by their family. But the work for them. The world is controlled by magicians, essentially. Okay. Here we go. About 10 minutes to our destination. Which way do I go? Shit. Boom, boom, chick, boom, boom, chick, boom, boom. It's weird being the first one to walk here. Opening up the path. Sweating again. And there's this woman who sexually assaulted me out here. I call them women. I mean, it's not really what a woman is. They're not really women. They're sort of gender robots. And like to any gender out there, it's just more like gender robots. Their gender seems to be paralyzed in the person. They really don't seem to see men or women or anyone, but I can tell in terms of what you'd expect someone to have gender. I guess no one really says healthy gender because your gender is considered healthy, whatever it is. I think there's such thing as a healthy and unhealthy gender. It's such a big part of biology. And any part of biology, if not unhealthy, can sustain influence and challenges faced with the sexual ill health of the environment, and all ill health is found to become sexual ill health, okay? Because it's a depth of the total biology. The total biology is produced by sex. You understand? It is all of the sex, as it were, right? But that's been buried in the idea of what is sexual is a combination of sex and death. Just like the monetary system is a combination of labor and birth and death. That's the magic you live under, right? But it's something to do with death. It's something to do with different languages of continuous spring and goodness, giving flesh to sound. It's like a creative potential made flesh. Right? It's about creation. But because we like women live against that, white women get menstrual cramps all the time because they live against themselves. They live as they're born from death and can only come to that by every measure of one's labor and love. That's what Christianity is about. It's all about death. But your life is born from life, from birth after birth. The day is born from all the days of birth and all the day, and thus such is the sanctity of this day, that it is blood related to all days. Woo! And all the ways of the sun, the paths of the deer. Look at that. Isn't that cool? It's created that interesting little cavity here too. Thirsty again. I see. So you don't really want to go. I told you. Here's the thing. When I tell someone I'm scared, I expect a different response than what I'm getting from you. I expect a cycle of such statements. Right? Can you help me to close acre right now? Yeah. So you can't really control these gorillas, basically gorillas. Lower class and no class. Sexual beauty trends. Lovely. Hey, gonna molest some children today, folks. Hey, gonna teach the public. You're gonna teach us how to behave properly. Hey, you're the best, man. I bet you could teach me how to behave, eh? You think me over here? Would you like to teach me how to behave, Bernie? Hey? Would you like to spank me? Would you like to teach me how to behave? Hey, you want to teach me how to get on the bus? What you tell me? I ain't getting without being molested. Right? Do your children get molested? Hey, do they? Maybe I'll let Bernie himself educate me, bend me over his knee, how to get on the bus without getting molested. Hey, without getting yelled at for standing there. Hey, is that what you do? Take people's money and you yell at them for standing there politely for 10 minutes? Hey, and then on them? Is that what you call a job? You proud of yourself? You stick out your chest every day, think of how wonderful an adult you really are. You're not a wonderful adult in real life. Nah, to think you get paid every day to do this. Yeah. I love it. I want to see how many people I can get fired from these things and the awful things that we do. That's my goal in life. And I know people who ride the bus, they're my eyes and ears. I encourage people to complain about everything on my website, on my Twitter, everything they see, every time they hear it. But can I just... Okay. Beautiful. Clay Banks. Like I said, it's the land. It's my mother. It's my mother. Really? I think there's rocks in my heart. I see. Really? I think there's something wrong with you, Christy. My heart is given to the land every day. Interesting. I think you probably have a whole bunch when you feel like women are quite often schizophrenic. I've noticed this woman who came to a friend of mine's house who had ALS, couldn't move most of his body. I'd never met him before, came to his house uninvited, sat down. I had traveled 100 miles to come there and see him, and spent 15 minutes telling him that even though he could only eat chocolate and get it down his throat, as this little boy sat there who would see his father die within weeks, and told him that the only reason he liked chocolate, one of the only things he could eat, is because it had a hole inside himself that would never be filled with chocolate. Who do you think really had a hole inside themselves? And how were they filling it? Not with chocolate, no. Another kind of substance, male energy. You see, women feed off of men. They feed off of them. They feed off of us, right? And when you have to interrupt it. You have to interrupt it subtly. Now, it was my friend's house, and he has his own way of dealing with things. And I wasn't going to sit there while he had ALS and presume to tell other people what to think and what to do in his house, because it was, after all, his house. And you see how these disgusting beings could put you in a very difficult spot, you know? And you know what his wife did? Who invited this cunt into the house? His wife, who was basically battering him on a regular basis. She apologized to me, but not to Ken. Isn't that fascinating? And so narcissists or women make these mistakes, right? Because they're always keeping up a pretext. Because they can't really be decent people. They're not driven by principles. Fear, territoriality, and trauma. All right. Guru. Be my guru. Won't you be my guru? Oh, fuck. I'm trying to eat a little bit every time I stop. Okay. Haven't seen anyone since the two older people I came across. And if I'd pointed that out, the woman, the thing, would have become very upset and defensive and probably very awkward and exposed, which would have been very traumatic for her. And so what they're really doing is putting their trauma, pitting it against that of their victim. They traumatize you. I don't want to be traumatized. Oh, don't traumatize me. Oh, please take it. Please take my trauma. And the trauma needs to be exposed. But instead of exposing it, because they live in denial, they distribute it to victims. Came into another man's house. Didn't say, lovely home, how are you? Nothing. Just started telling him how he has a hole inside himself while he's got a tube down his throat. And he's trying not to die one day at a time. Can you fucking believe it? And that's what white women are like. My friend Ken is a very compassionate man. He's passed now. He sends me dreams sometimes. Beautiful dreams. even though my dad pretty much abandoned us, I think he genuinely worked really hard not to. And I still want to think of him as my father, even though he wasn't really a father to me. Because quite frankly, he's better than most I've ever met. He just is. And my mother broke him down a lot. She was quite violent to him. And I understand through my mother, why women have to be violent to men and can't help themselves. They can't. A lot of women can't. They're just very quickly very angry at men. And now I find myself very quickly angry at women. Because I've put up with them my whole life. You so much as say hi to them and they'll just fucking be creepy and weird. Mm-hmm. Maybe what the heck? It's okay. Yeah, I tried to. I came up with them. Just recorded just in time. Wait till the fake. And then I think make a fucking connection. Wow. Just awful experiences with women. That woman that was here that one day, I still feel like shit about it. Even after months and months. Years will go by, I still feel like shit. An eminently shitty human being. And they try to talk and they're just aggressive. Piece of shit. She had agendas coming out of her asshole. I just can't believe that. Coming to a man's house, coming into a man's space. I've had so many women come into my space and just be rude. Coming into my personal space. Oh, is it still going? See. I wouldn't continue something like that. Okay. I choose now. I'm not sure what big a deal it's going to make, but let's do it. Let's do this thing. Yeah.
sock off, dry sock on. Shit. There's a couple times in life, here and other places I've walked, you say something vaguely related or directly related, just an observation of the area, small talk, what have you, and these white women will just start going off about everything they know, even though it really has nothing to do with what you just said. It's amazing. That's it. And I know this, and I know that. Ooh, and I know this. My daddy's proud of me. You should be proud of me too. Oh, okay. All right. You gotta tie it tight because they tend to come. No, I wish these were high tops, but these are the best I could find at the time. Okay, good. Next. Oh, way to go, Landon. Put tons of fucking snow on your fresh socks. What the hell was going on with that? Fuck.